In the bustling capital city of Hespera, a world known for its towering crystal buildings and glittering lights, Alex walked through the royal halls with his heart pounding. The city's skyline shimmered outside the windows, casting shadows in the marble corridors. He had been to this palace many times before, but today felt different. Today he had something special in his hands, a gift that could change everything. Alex was an Earthborn diplomat who had been assigned to work with the royal court of Hespera for the past few years. He wasn't from a powerful family or a world with advanced technology, but his ability to communicate, his respect for alien cultures, and his calm nature had earned him the trust of Queen Alira, the ruler of Hespera. She was known for her elegance, strength, and sharp mind. Her reign was one of peace and prosperity, though few knew the hidden struggles she carried within her heart. It was the Queen's birthday, and Alex had been preparing for weeks. He knew that she never asked for anything grand. The royal court was always filled with expensive gifts and extravagant displays, but Alex wanted to give her something personal, something that would show his respect and understanding. He had spent days searching through rare collections, old Earth artifacts, and countless records until he found it, the perfect gift. It was an antique watch, a simple yet beautiful piece, with an intricate design that had been passed down through generations. The watch had once belonged to Queen Alira's late husband, King Valen, who had ruled beside her for many years before his sudden death. The king had been a wise and fair ruler, but his death had been shrouded in mystery, leaving the queen with deep wounds that no one in the court dared to speak of. The watch was thought to have been lost in the chaos that followed his death, and its return seemed almost impossible. Alex had spent weeks tracking down the watch, a relic of Earth's history, buried in an old vault on a distant moon. Now, holding it in his hand, Alex felt a strange sense of both pride and nervousness. He wasn't sure how the Queen would react. Would she appreciate it, or would it bring back painful memories? He took a deep breath and entered the royal chambers, where the Queen was waiting. The room was grand, with high ceilings and walls lined with colorful tapestries depicting the rich history of Hespera. The Queen stood by a large window, her silhouette framed by the soft golden light of the setting sun. Her dark hair cascaded down her back, and her regal gown shimmered in the light. But there was a quiet sadness in her eyes. "Your Majesty," Alex began, bowing respectfully, "I have a gift for you. Something I believe you will appreciate." Queen Alira turned slowly, her gaze fixing on him. There was a warmth in her eyes, but also a hint of caution. She had always been composed, never showing too much emotion, especially in front of others. "What is it, Alex?" she asked, her voice soft but commanding. Alex stepped forward, holding the watch carefully in his hand. "It's an Earth artifact, Your Majesty," he said, his voice steady. "A piece of history. It belonged to your late husband, King Valen. I know it has great sentimental value, and I thought you might like to have it again." The Queen's eyes widened as she took the watch from him. She didn't speak for a moment, staring down at the delicate object in her hands. Her fingers trembled as she traced the surface of the watch, and for the first time, Alex saw her face fall. She wasn't the powerful queen everyone knew. She was a woman who had lost something dear, someone she had loved deeply, a woman whose pain was now returning. The room was silent. Alex stood there, unsure of what to do, his heart beating faster with every passing second. The Queen didn't move, didn't say a word. She simply held the watch in her hands, staring at it as though she had seen a ghost. Alex felt a wave of unease wash over him. Had he made a mistake? Should he have chosen a different gift? I didn't mean to cause you pain," Alex said softly, his voice filled with regret. "I thought—" The Queen raised a hand to silence him. Her voice, when it came, was barely above a whisper. "No, it's not your fault," she said, her eyes still fixed on the watch. "It's just, I never thought I would hold this again." Alex stepped back slightly, giving her space. But his concern only grew. He had heard rumors about the king's death, how it had been sudden and mysterious. Many believed he had died from natural causes, but some whispered about foul play, about a conspiracy within the court. No one knew for sure, and Queen Alira had never spoken about it. She had kept her grief locked away, hidden behind her royal duties. Now, standing in front of her, Alex realized that the watch had unlocked something deep inside her, something she had kept buried for years. The watch wasn't just a token of her late husband's legacy. It was a painful reminder of the love they had shared and the mystery of his untimely death. The queen took a deep breath, her shoulders slumping slightly as she closed her eyes. "This watch," she whispered, "was once a symbol of my husband's love for me. We shared so much together. He gave it to me on our wedding day, and it was always with me. After his death, I thought I had lost everything." Alex didn't know what to say. He had never seen her this vulnerable, and it was clear that the memories were overwhelming her. He took a step back, giving her space, not wanting to intrude on her private moment. But the queen's voice, though soft, was filled with quiet strength. "I never wanted to show weakness," she continued, her eyes still on the watch. "In public, I had to be the queen, the ruler of Hespera. But in private, I was just a woman who had lost her husband, a woman who was alone." Alex felt a deep pang of sympathy for her. He had always known her as the strong, dignified leader. But now he saw the woman behind the crown, a woman who had been carrying the weight of the past for so long. "I'm sorry," Alex said, his voice filled with sincerity. "I didn't mean to bring up old memories. I wanted to give you something meaningful." The queen finally looked up at him, her eyes filled with gratitude, but also sadness. "It is meaningful," she said softly. "More than you know. But you must understand, Alex. My husband's death was not as simple as it seemed. It was not just a tragic loss. It was something more." Alex was taken aback by her words. He had heard rumors, but to hear the queen herself speak of it so openly was unexpected. The pain in her voice was raw, and Alex felt as though he had uncovered something that had been hidden for far too long. "Your Majesty," he asked cautiously, "what do you mean? What happened to King Valen?" The queen hesitated, as if deciding whether to speak further. Finally, she sighed deeply and placed the watch on the table beside her. "There are things that must never be spoken of, Alex," she said, her voice steady once more. "Things that could destroy the peace of Hespera. But you should know, the truth about my husband's death is not what the court believes." Alex nodded slowly, understanding that the queen was offering him a glimpse into a part of her life that no one else had ever seen. He could sense that this was just the beginning of a much larger story, one that would change everything. The queen's eyes softened as she looked at him. "Thank you for bringing this to me," she said quietly. "It was a gift that I never expected, but it has opened a door that I have kept closed for too long." Alex bowed once more, feeling the weight of the moment. As he turned to leave, he knew that this simple gift had started something far bigger than he could have imagined. It had unlocked the queen's past, and with it, the truth about a death that had never been fully understood. And in the days to come, Alex would find himself drawn into a mystery that threatened not only the queen's future, but the very fate of Hespera itself. The day after Alex had given Queen Alira the watch, the palace was quieter than usual. The grand halls, usually echoing with laughter and political discussions, felt still. The servants moved silently through the corridors, their footsteps soft on the polished floors. Even the light that streamed through the tall windows seemed dimmer, as if the entire palace was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. Alex woke early, his mind racing with the events of the previous evening. The queen's reaction to the watch had unsettled him. He had never seen her like that. Vulnerable, emotional, as if the weight of the past had suddenly crushed her. He had only meant to offer a gift, something small, something meaningful. But instead, he had opened a door to something far deeper than he had expected. After the queen had left him standing in her chambers, her face still pale from the shock of holding the watch again, Alex had retreated to his own quarters. He spent hours pacing the room, wondering if he had made a mistake. What had he triggered by presenting her with the watch? What was the truth behind her husband's death, and why had she chosen to keep it hidden for so long? The next morning, Alex received a message from the royal palace, a request to meet the queen in her private chambers. The message was brief, but the urgency in it was clear. He didn't know what to expect, but he knew this was his chance to learn more about the queen's past, and perhaps to understand the mystery that had been left unanswered for so long. When Alex arrived at the queen's chambers, he found the doors slightly ajar. He knocked softly, and after a moment, the queen's voice called out from inside. "Come in, Alex." He pushed open the door, his heart beating faster with each step. The room was as grand as ever, with its tall windows overlooking the city. The queen stood by the large, ornate desk, her back to him. She was looking out at the view, her hands resting on the edge of the desk. She looked smaller somehow, more fragile, as if the weight of the world had settled on her shoulders. "Your Majesty?" Alex said, bowing slightly. "You called for me?" Queen Alira turned slowly to face him. Her expression was calm, but there was a sadness in her eyes that he hadn't seen before. "Yes, Alex," she said quietly. "I wanted to speak with you about last night." Alex nodded. "Of course." "I didn't mean to upset you. I thought—" She raised a hand to stop him. "No, Alex, you did not upset me," she said firmly. "You simply reminded me of something I had buried deep within me. A memory, a painful one." Alex watched her closely. He could tell that this was not just a casual conversation. She was about to reveal something important, something that had been hidden for a long time. "Your Majesty, if you're comfortable with it, could you tell me what happened? What happened to King Valen?" The queen's face hardened for a moment, as if she was considering whether to speak. She turned back to the window, staring out at the bustling city below. The palace was high up, far above the noise of the streets, and the view from the queen's chambers was breathtaking. But Alex could sense that the queen was not looking at the view. Her thoughts were far away. For a long moment, there was silence between them. Finally, the queen spoke, her voice slow and steady. "My husband, King Valen, did not die of natural causes. That much I can tell you." Alex felt a chill run down his spine. He had suspected something was wrong, but hearing the queen say it so plainly made his heart race. "What do you mean, Your Majesty?" The queen took a deep breath, turning away from the window and walking toward the desk. She sat down slowly, her hands resting on the arms of the chair. "It's a story that I have never told anyone, not even my closest advisors. My husband's death was not an accident. He was killed, and I believe it was not only for power, but for something much greater." Alex sat down in the chair across from her, his mind spinning. He had heard whispers of the king's death, rumors that had never been confirmed, but to hear it from the queen herself, it changed everything. Who would want to kill him? Alex asked, his voice filled with concern. Why? The queen's eyes were distant as she spoke. King Valen was a good man, but he had enemies. His rule was one of peace, but not everyone was happy with the way things were going. The royal council, the military, even some of our own people. There were factions who wanted more power, more control. Valen was an obstacle to them, a symbol of a future they did not want. He believed in unity, in strengthening our alliances with other worlds. But some saw that as weakness. Alex listened carefully, trying to piece together the puzzle. The queen's words painted a picture of a man who had worked tirelessly for peace, but who had made powerful enemies along the way. And your husband knew this? He knew he was in danger? Queen Alira nodded. Yes, he had always known. He was not naive. But he was also not the type of man to show fear. He kept his suspicions to himself, and he never let on that he was afraid, but I could see it in his eyes. He was worried, especially in the months leading up to his death. Alex's mind raced. The idea that the king had been killed by those closest to him was chilling. Did anyone suspect who might have been behind it? He asked carefully. The queen hesitated before answering. I did, she said softly. I suspect that the council was involved, but there was never enough evidence to prove it, and after his death, everything became so chaotic. The political landscape shifted. The peace I had worked so hard to build began to unravel, and I was forced to take control quickly. I couldn't afford to show weakness. Alex felt a pang of sympathy for her. The weight of leadership was heavy enough without carrying the burden of losing someone you loved. And for the queen, it seemed her grief had been compounded by betrayal, by the knowledge that her husband's death had been a calculated move by those who wanted power. Your Majesty, Alex said gently, I know this is painful for you, but I think it's important that you know the truth. The people of Hespera deserve to know what happened to their king. Queen Alira looked up at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and resolve. I will tell them, Alex, she said quietly. But not yet. The time is not right. The conspirators are still out there, and they will stop at nothing to protect themselves. But I will bring them to justice. I will uncover the truth, no matter the cost. Alex nodded, understanding the gravity of her words. He had no idea what would happen next, but he knew that this revelation had changed everything. The queen was no longer just a ruler. She was a woman on a mission, a woman determined to uncover the truth and bring those who had wronged her husband to justice. As Alex stood to leave, the queen's voice stopped him.
Thank you, Alex, she said softly. You have given me the strength to face this.
I had forgotten what it felt like to speak of the past, but now I remember why it's so important. Alex bowed his head. It is an honor, Your Majesty. I will be here for you, whatever you need. And with that, he left her chambers, knowing that their journey together was only just beginning. The mystery of King Valen's death was far from over, but now, with the Queen's trust, Alex was more determined than ever to help her uncover the truth. The fate of Hespera, and perhaps even the entire galaxy, depended on it. Alex couldn't shake the feeling that he was standing on the edge of something much bigger than he had expected. The conversation with Queen Alira had left him with more questions than answers, but it had also revealed a side of her that he had never seen before, a side that was no longer just the calm, distant ruler of Hespera, but a woman struggling with the weight of loss and betrayal. In the days that followed their meeting, the palace was abuzz with activity. The queen had become more distant, more focused. She no longer spent her days overseeing the ceremonies and meetings that had once filled her schedule. Instead, she was deep in her chambers, studying old documents, speaking to advisors in private, and making plans without revealing much to anyone. Alex, meanwhile, had become a silent observer, waiting for his next chance to speak with her. The truth about King Valen's death seemed to be lurking just beyond their reach, but every time they tried to get closer to it, more obstacles appeared. It was as if the shadows of the past had a way of hiding just out of sight, always moving, always shifting. One evening, as the sun began to set over the crystal towers of Hespera, Alex received a message. It was from Queen Alira, requesting his presence in the royal archives. He didn't know what to expect, but he knew that whatever was about to happen would change everything. When he arrived at the royal archives, the vast room was quiet. Shelves of ancient scrolls and digital records stretched from floor to ceiling, some of the oldest histories of Hespera stored in the room. Queen Alira was waiting for him, standing near a large table covered with open books and holographic screens. She looked even more determined than before, her eyes sharp and focused. Alex, she said, her voice steady, I need your help. There are things in these records that I cannot go through alone. There are names and dates here that may hold the key to everything. Alex nodded, stepping forward. What exactly are we looking for? I need you to help me find the missing pieces of my husband's death, she said. There are documents here, hidden away, that could tell us who was behind the conspiracy. I have been too afraid to go through them alone. Alex was surprised by her admission. He had always known that the Queen was strong, but to hear her admit her fear was something entirely different. It was a side of her he had never expected to see. And in that moment he realized just how much was at stake. This wasn't just about solving a mystery. It was about the Queen's future, the future of Hespera, and the safety of the royal family. Of course, he said. I'll help you, whatever you need. Together they began to sift through the records. Queen Alira's fingers moved quickly over the screens, pulling up documents, letters, and old reports. The room was filled with the soft hum of technology, but there was a heavy silence between them. The weight of the past seemed to hang over them both, and Alex could feel it growing with every passing moment. As the night wore on, they uncovered piece after piece of evidence. There were reports of secret meetings, coded messages, and suspicious transactions between high-ranking officials in the Royal Council. Each new discovery seemed to bring them closer to the truth, but also further into danger. The more they uncovered, the more they realized just how deep the conspiracy ran. "Here," Queen Alira said suddenly, her voice sharp with excitement. "This document—"
It's a letter from my husband. He must have known something was wrong.
Alex leaned over her shoulder, reading the letter with her. It was addressed to a mysterious figure named Liranin, someone who was never mentioned in any of the official records. The letter spoke of growing distrust among the council and hints of plans to take control of Hespera. It was clear that King Valen had suspected something, but the letter stopped abruptly, as though it had been cut off before the final words could be written. "That's it?" Alex said quietly, his mind racing. He was onto something, but he never finished writing it. Queen Alira nodded, her eyes scanning the page again. "This could be the key," she said softly. "But who is Liran? Why was my husband communicating with this person?" Alex didn't have an answer. The name Lirain meant nothing to him, and it didn't appear in any of the royal records they had searched, but he could see the determination in the Queen's eyes. She wasn't going to stop until she had the answers. "There's more," Queen Alira continued, tapping on the screen. "I've been going through the Council's financial records. There's a pattern here. Look at these transactions." Alex leaned in closer, examining the data. The numbers were strange. Large sums of money being transferred between accounts with no clear explanation. The recipients were not listed, and the amounts were far too large for any legitimate business dealings. It was clear that someone was paying for something. But what? "The Council has been involved in something much bigger than we thought," Alex said slowly. "These payments, they don't look like anything to do with official royal business." Queen Alira nodded, her expression grim. "I suspected as much. These payments were meant to fund a coup. The council members were paying off mercenaries, trying to build an army in secret." The realization hit Alex like a blow to the chest. This wasn't just about uncovering the truth of King Valen's death. This was about exposing a full-scale conspiracy that had been brewing for years, one that could bring Hespera to the brink of war.
"But who is behind it?" Alex asked, looking at the records again.
"Who's pulling the strings?" "I don't know," Queen Alira said, her voice tight with frustration. "But we're getting closer." They continued their search, pushing deeper into the records. It wasn't long before they found another startling discovery. There was a hidden file, one that had been buried under layers of other documents. Queen Alira opened it, and what they saw sent a chill through both of them. It was a list of names, some of which were familiar to Alex: high-ranking officials in the Royal Council, military leaders, and even members of the royal family. But there were also names that had never come up before, people who had been carefully removed from history. And at the top of the list was Lirain. "We have to find this person," Alex said urgently. "Lirain is the key." "They must know everything." Queen Alira nodded, her jaw set. I agree. But where do we begin? Who can we trust? Alex thought for a moment. The web of conspiracy they had uncovered was vast, and it seemed like every step they took led to another question. But one thing was clear. The Queen needed to act quickly before those responsible for her husband's death could strike again. We start with the council, Alex said. There must be someone there who knows something about Liran. If we can get them to talk, we'll be closer to finding the truth. Queen Alira's gaze hardened. I'll find them. But we need to be careful. There are eyes everywhere, and anyone we trust could be part of the plot. The tension in the room was palpable as they gathered the evidence they had found. Alex couldn't help but feel that they were walking a dangerous line. Every decision they made from this point on would bring them closer to the truth, but also to the very people who had betrayed the Queen and her husband. As they left the archives, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that the storm was only just beginning. The palace that had once felt like a place of safety now felt like a prison, and somewhere in the shadows, the forces behind the conspiracy were waiting, watching, preparing to strike. But Alex knew one thing for sure. He couldn't turn back now. The Queen had trusted him with the truth, and he would see it through, no matter the cost. Alex felt the weight of what lay ahead as he and Queen Alira walked away from the royal archives. Every step they took seemed heavier, like they were walking deeper into a labyrinth from which there would be no easy escape. The truth about King Valen's death was within their reach, but so were the people who had worked so hard to keep it buried. They made their way down the long hallway, the soft hum of palace life continuing around them. The servants moved with purpose, the distant murmur of conversations and the sound of clinking silverware from the royal dining room reaching their ears. But despite the outward calm, Alex could feel the tension in the air. Something was wrong. The palace was not a safe place anymore. Not for the Queen, not for him, and certainly not for anyone who dared to uncover the secrets hidden within its walls. Alex, the Queen said, her voice steady though there was a hardness to it now, a resolve that hadn't been there before. We need to speak with the council. It's time to confront them, and we can't wait any longer. Alex looked at her, meeting her gaze. There was no fear in her eyes now, only determination. He had seen her strength before, but now it seemed to shine brighter than ever, fueled by the knowledge that she was on the verge of exposing a truth that had been hidden for far too long. I agree, Alex said, but we have to be careful. We don't know who we can trust. If the council is behind this, they'll be watching us, waiting for us to make a move. We need to plan carefully. The Queen nodded. I know. But the longer we wait, the more powerful they become. I will not let my husband's death be forgotten, and I will not let those who betrayed him get away with it. They paused outside the council chambers, the grand double doors looming in front of them. It felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, about to step into the unknown. The council was a place of politics, strategy, and power, a place where secrets were made and broken, and now it was the place where the Queen would take the final step toward revealing the truth. Queen Alira turned to Alex, her expression hardening. I'm ready. Are you? Alex took a deep breath. He had never imagined himself in a situation like this. He had always been the diplomat, the one who smoothed over differences and worked behind the scenes. But this was different. This wasn't about diplomacy. This was about justice. I'm ready, he said. They entered the council chambers, the doors closing quietly behind them. The room was vast, with a long table at the center, surrounded by high-backed chairs. The council members were already gathered, their faces solemn as they awaited the Queen's arrival. The air felt thick with anticipation, as if the room itself was holding its breath. Your Majesty, one of the councilors, an older man named Ralden, said as they approached. We were not expecting you today. Is there something urgent you wish to discuss? Queen Alira's eyes flashed. There is much we need to discuss, Ralden. and it cannot wait any longer. She took her seat at the head of the table, and Alex sat beside her, his eyes scanning the room. The council members looked uneasy, shifting in their seats, glancing at each other as if unsure of what to expect. They had never seen the queen like this before. This wasn't the calm, measured ruler they were used to. This was a woman who had been pushed to her limits, and now she was ready to reveal the truth. "I know there are many things that have been kept hidden from me," the queen began, her voice strong. "Things about my husband's death, things about the actions of some of the members of this council." A murmur ran through the room, and Alex could see the tension rising. The counselors exchanged nervous glances, and a few of them shifted in their seats, clearly uncomfortable with what was happening. "Your Majesty," Ralden said, his voice attempting to remain calm, though there was an edge to it now. "You must understand that the events surrounding the king's death were tragic, but there were no conspiracies. It was a sudden illness, nothing more." Queen Alira's gaze locked onto Ralden's. "Do not lie to me, Ralden. I know the truth now. My husband was murdered, and I have proof. The conspiracy runs deep within this council, and it involves more than just a few people. You all thought you could bury it, but you were wrong." The room fell silent. Alex could feel the weight of the queen's words settling over them all, and he saw the fear in the eyes of some of the council members. This was it. The truth was out in the open, and there was no turning back. One of the counselors, a younger woman named Lirian, stood up suddenly. Her face was pale, but there was a look of defiance in her eyes. "You have no proof, Your Majesty. This is nothing but baseless accusation. If you have evidence, then present it. Otherwise, you are slandering the names of those who have served you loyally." "Is that what you think?" Queen Alira's voice was icy now. "You think I would come here in front of all of you without evidence?" "You are the one who is lying, Lirian. You have been working with others in this council to keep the truth hidden. You were involved in my husband's death, and I have the proof right here." With a swift motion, Queen Alira placed a data disk on the table. She slid it forward, her eyes never leaving Lirian's. "This disk contains all the information I need to expose the conspiracy." "Ooh." "It contains the transactions, the letters, the secret meetings, everything." Lirian's face went pale and she took a step back. The tension in the room was palpable now, and Alex could feel the heat rising as the counselors looked at one another, unsure of how to react. Ralden, who had remained silent until now, spoke again, his voice trembling. "You cannot do this, Your Majesty. If you expose us, you will destroy everything. You will tear this kingdom apart." "I will not destroy this kingdom," the queen said firmly. "But I will not let those who betrayed my husband get away with it." "Hespera deserves the truth. The people deserve to know what really happened." "And I will make sure they do." The room was silent for a long time. The counselors were now visibly nervous, their faces tense as they awaited the queen's next move. Alex could feel the weight of their stares, but he knew there was no going back. The truth had to come out, no matter the consequences. Finally, Lirian spoke again, her voice soft but filled with venom. "You think this will change anything? You think this will bring your husband back?" "You're just a puppet, Your Majesty. All of us, we've been working for the future of this kingdom, and you." "I don't need your justification, Lirian," the queen interrupted, her voice cutting through the air like a blade. "What you did was wrong, and now you will answer for it." The tension in the room reached a boiling point. For a moment, it felt as if the world itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. Alex could hear the pounding of his own heart in his ears, the anticipation growing thicker by the second. And then, with a simple motion, Queen Alira pressed a button on the console in front of her. The screen behind her flickered to life, displaying the contents of the disk. The council members watched in stunned silence as the evidence appeared on the screen. Documents, financial transactions, names, and dates. Everything they had worked so hard to hide. Lorion's face went ashen, and she took a step back, realizing that the Queen had uncovered everything. The truth was now undeniable. "This is only the beginning," Queen Alira said, her voice steady, though there was a fire behind it now. "The people will know. You will all answer for your actions." The room was still, the weight of the moment sinking in. The council had been exposed, and the Queen had taken her first steps toward reclaiming justice. There would be consequences, but for the first time in a long while, Queen Alira felt the weight of her grief and anger lifting. The truth had been revealed, and now there would be no more hiding. As they left the council chambers, Alex couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. The Queen had done what she set out to do. The path ahead would be difficult, but it was a path toward justice, toward truth, and toward a future where the past could no longer haunt her.